And we just need to take back that mana. It's taking back that mana, but in places and spaces where sometimes people don't understand that, and they need to tick the boxes, and they need to, report back, this is what is happening. Actually, don't tell us what we need to do or what we need to know or how we should do it, because we know.
This podcast is proudly supported by the Ōtara Network Action Committee, ONAC, community-owned, community-driven and community-led.
Oki mai anō ki we are Ōtara. Kia ora koutou. Ko Judy Spate Takawingawa, and today it's my delight to introduce you once more to Huia Murupaenga. Huia and I serve on a number of boards together, and I guess most of all, aside from that structured work and the formal work in the community, I'm so fortunate to call Huia my friend, and she's my mentor, and she's sharing our journey at Accelerating Aotearoa as a trustee there as well. So thank you for being here to listen to this conversation. When we were talking this morning, before I did the intro, we were saying, what did we talk about that day? We're bouncing out of so many things, and every moment, every day working with Huia is an honour and a joy. And I want you to have a bit of an insight into some of that joy and wonder today on this podcast. So have a lovely time. See you on the other side. Kia ora.
Ngā mihi ki a koe, te rangatira. Ngā mihi hoki ki te hāpori o Ōtara. Ngā mana whenua me māta Waka. So, ko Huia Murupaenga tuku ingoa. So I just to support the kōrero and the many kōrero that we've had in the past. In Ōtara especially, been here for 30 odd years. But prior to coming to Ōtara, my mother-in-law and my husband, he's been here for 50 years since he was born. So, what used to be 50, 60 years ago in Ōtara is not the way that it is today. And what I'm talking about, there was a lot of strong leadership, strong Māori leadership. And over the years, that has, I'm not saying that there aren't strong leadership, Māori leadership out there, but it's that cohesiveness. It's ensuring that Ōtara have the solutions for Ōtara. And that's just a kōrero that we recently had with Sully. Yeah. And so if I talk about the role that I the pōtai, I have many pōtai, many hats that I wear.
The wardrobe is full.
Yes, the wardrobe is full. And I think the key thing is that the pōtai that I hold really dearly is being a nana. So, I look at our mokopuna and what we leave behind for them. What are those footsteps? And so that cohesiveness, and in my role as a community person, as a Ōtara member, but also as a kaitaka wānanga for Ōtara Waterways and Lakes, Accelerating Aotearoa, and ONAC. And so as a kaitaka wānanga, it's a connect. It's a connect to our hāpori, our community, but also to our Māori communities, and to really navigate that. So probably for the last couple of years, I have listened, really taken time to sit and listen and see who's who does what, and who do I align myself with to ensure I know where to go, what's happening. And that's all about the end result, which is cohesiveness, which is about mahi tahi, working together, and not about the ego, not about, yes, we would love money, but it's not about the money, because we wear these pōtai, we wear these hats, and
from our hearts,
yeah. And we don't get paid for it monetary, but we do get paid from it, from our community, with that aroha. However, there's wero. There's so many challenges in that, and navigating that, being able to have a breather when we come up against sometimes our own organisations that really challenge us in our own beliefs and our own ways of thinking. So that kaitaka wānanga role is pivotal as far as making sure that whatever we do as an organisation, as a community, we're going along and doing it in the sense where we're using tikanga as the basis and we're doing it properly. So we get guided, as a kaitaka wānanga, get guided by our rōpū. And I mentioned this morning, just recently at a board meeting, and set up a rōpū just to make sure that whatever it is that I do, that we do, is done tika me te pono, which is correctly. And so, they all interrelate, they all interconnect, and really understanding what's happening in the community. And that shift away from community where we want to bring that back, we want to have more control over that, because we're the ones that live here.
But also doing things our way. And I was thinking about that very same board meeting this morning where some people are thinking that we need to import an external way and external ways of measuring things and, when will this be done and what date? And that's not the way it works in community and certainly not in taonga.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, when we look at Ōtara in particular, it's been known as the poor cousin. And actually we've got so many of our community leaders that have done some amazing things, and those things that they've done, we have come through, we follow those footsteps, and we just need to take back that mana. It's taking back that mana, but in places and spaces where sometimes people don't understand that, and they need to tick the boxes, and they need to, report back, this is what is happening. Actually, don't tell us what we need to do or what we need to know or how we should do it, because we know.
But that's why you're the kaitaka wānanga. Yes, because we know that you can explain. I've heard you explain. Not just try to explain, but really explain so people can understand. Actually, the way you see this is not the way others see it.
Well, I think about, and I've used this a number of times, I think about, what does partnership look like? And if we go to the beach and you go and pick some pippies or cockles or whatever it is, and you've got a person that you're taking for the first time to the beach and you're showing them how to do that, and you fill that kete up and you each hold the handle of that kete, and then you take them back to your home and you share that kai. Now, if you're going to a person's home and you're telling them, actually, that's not, you shouldn't be eating that because that probably isn't going to be any good for you. That, if we look at that, that's not partnership. So partnership for me is about the sharing of that knowledge, the sharing of the aroha. And if people don't get that when you're trying to explain that, then we don't need to be in partnership with them.
I love that about you, that cut and dry. Yeah. It's not about not being prepared to compromise. It's just understanding when something's too far away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So if we go back to, those three elements, and we talk a little bit about what the three elements look like. So that leadership rōpū, what does that look like? That's where we rest the kaumatua leadership.
Yeah. So when I first took on the role as kaitaka wānanga, I realised right at the beginning that we needed to have some safety aspects, because when we as in Māori, when we work, we don't work alone. We're always thinking about what would my tupuna do? What would they, if I'm doing this particular work, what advice would they give me? And so we created a rōpū, a small team, and they were mainly people that I trusted, fully trusted. And we had a representative, our kaumatua, And we also had a representative from mana whenua. We had yourself, Jude. And we also had at the time the chairperson at Whai Ora ko Hangareo, just so that we could represent different parts of the community. And from there, it was about really understanding that if anything happens, that we had the okay from our kaumatua and from the rōpū. We called it kōtuku. The kōtuku is the white heron, and the white heron is actually it's a real taonga. It's if you ever see the white heron, it means something special is happening. And so we used that particular model because that's the model that we used back up at my iwi, Ngāti Kuri, and they've done some amazing stuff within that. Kaumatua led, and it has to be. And so from that rōpū, and ensuring we get advice, if say we're asked to do something like a pōhiri, that they fully understand that this is what's happening. So, every step of the way that we're guided by that. So that's the kōtuku rōpū. And from that, we don't just have to use it in one particular area, we could use it anywhere.
So I've noticed that some of the tikanga Māori that you've enabled us to embrace over the last year, and I was thinking, it's just, as you would say, it makes it tika. Everything that we do has this embrace, and it certainly that makes me, even that small thing makes me feel safe when I'm thinking about when Will first joined us and we had a little whakatau to welcome him to the whānau, and we celebrated the thing that he was here. Just for those of you who can't see Will, he's nodding his head very wisely now.
I'm still here.
And then I was thinking about, how instead of our, the hui that we have throughout the community seems endless every day, but instead of going, who's going to say a karakia, or will we say a karakia, which still alarms me ever so slightly, but we know that you've got this in hand, so the whole kaupapa of the tikanga Māori is with you to lead us, and that's it changes everything, and it gives us expectations, but understanding, and it gives structure, and credibility, perhaps, what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think I talked about Waka, and that means that people who are tangata whenua, Māori from anywhere across Aotearoa, they come from different canoe, different waka, but they've landed in Ōtara. And so when you've come from a rural area into an urban area, for some of our Māori, they've disconnected.
Yeah.
And so with that disconnect, it's trying to navigate how do I move into that te ao Māori in a way where I feel safe and I take others with me that feel safe. And when we have people like our Auntie Florence, who has so much knowledge and matauranga, those are the very people that hold that way of doing things back in the past. But how do we ensure that we use some of those concepts and that we used to do back in the past, but in a different environment, in an urban environment.
But the minute you start doing that, of course, there's a gravitation, isn't it? Because people go, I remember. That's how we used to do it.
Yeah.
So it does create the safety.
Yeah. And for some as well, when you've had that disconnect, it's that feeling of whakamā, like I'm shy because I should know because I'm Māori. But if you have, if your journey has led you where you don't really know your tikanga, you want to be with people that aren't going to judge you.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. And not just for Māori, for all people that come on this waka.
Yeah.
We want to be on the same waka. However, in saying that, there are going to be people who will be resistant to that.
Some people opt out too.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And so that's entirely up to them, and it's about the time, space and readiness to be able to do that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and then I guess if we're going with that little three-part
Kaupapa.
the kaupapa of 3 parts. So then there's what I just called, because it came to me when I was thinking about it, it is the ringa. So the ringa are those organisations that we're already walking with, which is so exciting.
Yeah.
And, particularly ones like our amazing chair at Waterways and Lakes, who's saying, well, we really should be working with this organisation. And I said, well, you'll be really pleased to know, Mr. Chairman, that, it's already trustees of that organisation. So it makes it, but it's quite natural. And at one point I felt that we were maybe squeezing things, but it gives us the opportunity to speak and be heard and to lead as we know we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So rather than be too specific about it, I think back to that day that we stood at the lakeside. So, this huge thing for Ōtara that somebody stole our lake. Well, somebody stole an awa, turned it into a lake, and then made it paru. So it's all a pretty sad story of the last 50 or 60 years. The old people still talk about swimming in the river. Well, that's not something you'd be doing today.
Yeah.
And he started a picnic with Sully, where people, he assures us he's only got no horns coming out of his head yet. But the lake. So it was your vision and your leadership, working with the kaumatua to bring 5 different local boards together. All of our it was engineers and other organisations, aligned organisations together. Who else did we have there? We had the local boards and the engineers, and we had Auckland Council were there, and you were able to articulate the vision for the lake. And together, we all came together to say, yes, that's what we want to do. We want to save this water.
Yeah.
We don't want it to be a random cesspit of rotting,
Which it currently is now.
Yes. So, and we know that's a really big journey, but to bring so many people with us, and then all of those people are still touched, I know, by that vision. And so that's possibly maybe our biggest piece of work that we want to do together in terms of most visual. What are our plans there? I know we didn't plan this, but it'd be kind of good to give people, people who are watching this conversation, the vision for how we might carry that kaupapa forward, because it's desperately important.
Yeah. So I think if we look at, and just to link this to Pepeha and how important Pepeha is. So when we talk about Pepeha, it's for us as Māori to connect us to where our maunga, where our mountain is, our Waka, our marae, our chief. It's to connect those. But if we look at water is just a real taonga. So if you look at our mountain, the water flows from our mountain, and then it goes into our roto, our awa, our moana, so our streams, and when we look at ourselves as people, as tangata, our waterways are the same. So we're connected to them. And if our waters that we live in, our waterways and our lake is paru, if it's dirty, then the chances are what we're putting into ourselves as tangata that live here in Ōtara is also paru. So it's, if we're taking the spiritual side of it, it's really important that we ensure that our waters, ourselves as people, that we're not clean, but we're actually doing things that will support our life, our mauri, and of our whānau as well. So on that particular day, because it was a beautiful day,
It was a wonderful day.
the tono, the wero, the challenge was that bring it back to us as the people that live here, and actually bring it back to mana whenua. And if we're walking alongside mana whenua and we are having conversations with mana whenua, then that actually is where it should sit.
Yeah.
But for us as people, mātā Waka and mana whenua and those of the Ōtara community, until we actually hold that mana or take hold of that mana, that's when the mauri will start happening. And we can see that, we can feel that, but it's now activating that. Did I answer that question?
I feel the urgency, and sometimes I feel desperate, but I feel brave walking with you and walking with this kaupapa. So we have to stay focused, we have to do it. And it's not about waiting for the next funding round. It's about getting, and I know you're already doing that, engaging more broadly with mana whenua, and maybe that's a really good conversation to have when we come back together again, because I'd really like this to be a regular catch-up about
what's happening.
Yeah, what's happening.
Yeah, what's the next step.
You're not going to hear this on the headline news yet. So, should we finish there? Yeah. Kia ora,
Oh, kia ora.